You've tuned into The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lane. Gardening, it can be challenging, but with these simple insider tips, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, let's tune into today's Mountain Gardener with Ken and Lisa.
And we are back with Lisa Lain in the studio. She comes and just shares her garden tidbits. What is she doing? What does she see in her own gardens? Or while she's walking around, I had someone come in. I was helping her just before the show. She said, "Oh, Ken, have you ever been to the Dallas Botanical Garden?" I said, "Yeah, it's great. Have you been to the Phoenix one? Have you been to the Portland, British Columbia? Barcelona has a really great botanical garden. Denver, surprising. Montreal, surprising. We love botanical gardens. So in the winter, we like them. In the summer, we like them. In the spring, we like them." Seems like a Dr. Seuss rhyme or something. Go with that. I don't know. So anyway, how do we get off on that? It's all you.
All me. All right. So we were at that season. I think last week we talked about growing flower, redoing your flower containers. So this week I wanted to talk about doing vegetables and herbs in containers, because it is a really super easy way to grow your veggies and your herbs. If you don't want to be digging in your soil, if you don't want to do a big garden plot, so maybe you want we used to call it salsa garden. So some tomatoes and some peppers and things like that we just grew to make fresh salsa with. So growing things in containers are just so easy.
Truly, it's just fill really it up, plug them in, and that's that eat water. That's it.
Right. But there are a few things we should probably talk about.
Or we can't fill up the whole 2-minute segment.
We're done. Okay. So when you're picking a container, make sure you have a container that has good drainage holes, especially important for those veggies and herbs. Spend a lot of your herbs like rosemary and lavenders. They don't want to be soggy wet.
No. Oh boy.
So you better make sure you've got some good drainage holes in those pots, whether you're using plastic, wood, the big ceramics. Just make sure it drains well for them.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about is when you're potting those, put the pot where you want it to be before you start planting, because
at least before you water it,
because it will get heavy and you're not going to be wanting to traps that thing all across the yard to find the perfect
get a caddy.
Spot.
We make rolling saucers, kind of roll it where you want.
Good point. But yes. Also, the thing you want to look for is just adequate size. So I would say the absolute minimum in my mind would be something that's maybe 10 inches wide, 12 inches deep. And that's probably more for herbs. Yeah. If you're growing like a tomato in there, the other thing to think about is you're going to want to either use poles or a tomato cage. So it's got to be deep enough to put that in there to support it. Yeah. Because a lot of those tomatoes, they get big and they get some weight to them once they get some tomatoes
wind
growing.
Heavy is what happens. The wind will catch them and they flip all over. So a bigger sauce or bigger soil is basically a sponge. And so it's pretty lightweight when you fill it up and plant.
Right.
But then when you water, people are stunned at how much water it takes to hydrate that soil. That's because basically you're filling that container up with water and the soil is simply absorbing that and holding it there. So it takes a tremendous amount. The initial watering, it takes more than you think to hydrate all that stuff.
So it's very important to, once you get your potting soil in there, make sure it's moist. Not soggy wet, not gooey, but make sure it's moist so that when you put that new plant in there, it's not going to suck all the water away from the plant. So make sure the soil is moist and make sure your plant has been watered. You do not want to put a dry plant into the soil.
Yeah.
Just make sure they're both hydrated.
Yeah. Don't want dry plants, dry soils. That does not make for happy gardeners.
It does not. Also, I always recommend, especially for tomatoes and pepper, things that like that real even watering. The Aqua Boost crystals, I think, are amazing, but especially for tomatoes, because tomatoes don't like to be soggy wet. They don't like to be bone dry. They just like that real even, moderate watering.
I find with our peppers, they're less, if peppers get stressed, they get super hot. So if you want sweeter tasting, more flavorful not just hot peppers. Aquaboost crystals really do regulate that out. It's a game. Onions the same way. Onions get a bitter. If they get stressed, they aren't as sweet.
Right.
So I think everything benefits from that.
Do people
Use it on everything. And you can only buy them at Waters Garden Center. We do actually make them here. So it looks kind of a cheesy looking product because we're actually bottling it. We're making it. We're put the lick and stick label on it. It's not something you can get professional. It's something that's locals that are using it locally for local plants. And it does actually work.
Definitely. So also your potting soil, make sure you use a good potting soil that actually will drain, because there's some potting soils that have like wetting agents in them.
Yeah.
And boy, that water just hangs around and plants don't like that. They get a lot of root rot.
That's also a chemical they add. That's why I have a hard time sourcing our recipe for our soil manufacturer. We have a recipe that we like. Make it like this and don't get creative. And we do not put wetting agents in it for that reason, because they're only chemical. There's always chemical dipped soils to make it wet down better. Well, I feel bad for organic gardeners. You know how hard it is to do organic gardening? I had the plant, but your soil, the fertilizers are chemically induced. Using city water, they add chlorine and fluorides and all kinds of crazy stuff. We can keep this organic.
Sure.
We really can.
Okay. Also, when you're filling pot, leave about 2 to 3 inches at the top of the pot, so that when you water it, that water has a chance to kind of pool there and drain through. Because if it's too full, it just goes whoop right out of the top of the pot and nothing gets down in there. So give yourself some room in there. If you're using multiple plants, so it's fine if you're going to put 2 different peppers in a pot, as long as you got the width and the size to it. It's fine to do that. We've done where was it peppers, and then we put zucchinis or cucumbers on the edge so they could spill over. So you can do that. Just make sure you're not overwhelming your pot. You do want to give these guys some space to grow.
It's mainly when they choke themselves out from light. It's a light thing, not so much root thing, though the soil is good. But when you've got like corn shadowing all your tomatoes because it's on the south side, and all of a sudden everything behind it can't get sun, they don't like that. So make sure they get enough sun. They're sharing the sunshine together because there's enough for everyone.
And some people like to, like tomatoes, they like to put some marigolds in there, kind of do some companion planting. So give yourself some room for that, and that's perfectly fine. The other thing I would mention is watering. So when you water these pots, we're at that weird point right now where maybe you don't need water every day, maybe you do, but we'll be there quickly.
Yeah.
So it's always best to hydrate your plants in the morning. It's best to give them enough water that they can get through the day. Some people go, well, I just water it twice a day. It's actually better for them to get complete hydration in the morning and let them go through the day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you water in the evening, you're kind of inviting a lot of fungal issues, some diseases that want to come in because they like that moisture, that cool moisture.
Bugs are attracted to it. Everything's attracted to moisture,
right?
Especially at night. So you're better to have it go water in the morning. Yeah, I'd say in the dawn. Earlier the better. First light.
And then it's okay to use a drip system with them. You just make sure your drip is running. Make sure it's in a spot where it's getting the entire pot wet. If you stick it at the edge, probably not as good as putting it as close to the middle as you can get it. And make sure it's running long enough to saturate that pot, to get some good moisture in there. So you might have to go out and experiment a little bit with it, because there's no hard fast rule, right? I can't tell you run your system for 10 minutes because I don't know how much water is coming out.
Water it until this water comes out the hole in the bottom. That means you've saturated the entire root zone. That's how much you know. And I really like the drip system. They make one that's on a stake, and then it's a 0 to 10 gallon per hour, but it makes a spray, kind of a mini spray that works really, really effective on containers. I know your list goes on, but we're out of time. Folks will have to come in and talk to Lisa to get more details on how to grow herbs and vegetables in your own containers. But Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners.
Waters Garden companion plants in May are Indian hawthorn, purple robe locust, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and vining akebia.
Akebia is a super vigorous vine with dangling, fragrant flowers.
She proliferates up arbors, pergolas, fences, and stunning as a ground cover to retain hills.
One of the fastest growing evergreen vines you can plant in the gardens.
You'll only find the hardiest vines at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. For a more fruitful garden, increased success in the landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Mountain Gardener podcast. Subscribe through your favorite podcast streamer or visit watersgardencenter.com. Better yet, visit me directly right here at Waters Garden Center. Thanks for tuning in.